It's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles going to the Super Bowl. I'm going to take a look at all of the conference championship weekend and tell you my Ravens takeaways from this weekend. I'm going to do it with the help of Rex Ryan, who sounds off, with the help of Shannon Sharpe and Ryan Clark, all three rants, which I think are perfect, and rants that they bring in for both the Ravens, the Bills, and other people that are trying to challenge the Chiefs. Couldn't agree with the three of them more, and that doesn't happen very often. I'm also going to talk about some mistakes that the NFL admitted to in the refereeing category against Lamar Jackson. And how about Marlon Humphrey being an absolute troll once the Bills were taken down? I'm going to get to that and so much more. Good afternoon. I am Sarah Ellison. Welcome inside the vault. I am here solo once again. My partner, Bobby Trossett, still fighting that flu. I'm telling you, I just spoke with him minutes before I went live here, and he is in no shape. His voice is in no shape to be on a show just yet, to be talking for an hour. We're hoping he's going to turn the corner somewhat soon, but that just has not happened over the weekend, despite some doctor's visits and some antibiotics. So hopefully we'll just keep him in our prayers, keep him in our thoughts, and I'm going to give him another ring after this show to try to give him some support. So thank you once again for being patient. I know we started almost 30 minutes late between, that, and I just am not able to move around my mornings with my 4 kids, so I can't get a jump on these shows without Bobby, so I'm having a hard time hitting that 12 o'clock deadline. Between that and my internet going out, it was a struggle to get here at noon, but we are here, and I've got lots of content here for you. So, as I said, the Washington Commanders were defeated by the Philadelphia Eagles. Started out pretty fun, pretty tight, but the Eagles were clearly just too dominant, putting up over 50 points. In the end, it really wasn't much of a contest. In the AFC, this game went closer down to the wire, but not surprisingly, as I predicted, and many of you, as I asked the chat on Friday, who do you guys got? A vast majority of you picked the Chiefs over the Bills and also the Eagles over the Commanders. And so what do we take away from this? As you're watching these games, as I'm watching these games, I know we're all thinking the same thing. We're all thinking the same thing. The Ravens have the talent and the skill to beat these teams. They just do. They're right there with all of them. So as we're watching, we're like, but why? Why? What are the takeaways? Why aren't the Ravens there? Why isn't it the Ravens who are punching the ticket to the Super Bowl this year? And so first things first, for me, the biggest takeaway is what Rex Ryan articulated this morning on Get Up. Couldn't agree with him more. And he uses the word flinch. Because right now, once you get to the playoffs, once you hit the conference championship weekend, shoot, in this case, even the divisional round, the talent, it's like separated by hairs. You're splitting hairs in terms of talent. But what's not being split is what the Chiefs have time in and time out every time they get to this point in the postseason.
Everybody on the Kansas City Chiefs expect to win. Mm-hmm. Yep. It doesn't matter. We're down. Who cares? We got Patrick Mahomes. We're going to win. We're going to win. And you know what? So does the other team. Yeah. The other team knows it too. They flinched. You can't do it. Josh Allen was searching for the words. To beat the champs, you got to beat the champs. You got to knock the champs out. To beat the champs, you got to knock the team out. Take it out of the judge's hands. And you know what that includes? All the excuses. All the penalty, hey, how about the calls, whatever. You flinched, catch the ball. You were a first-round pick. This is one of the most amazing throws I've ever seen by a quarterback. Catch the ball. You flinched. And to me, the coaches flinched. They have no answer when Spagnuolo kept running those zero blitzes. You know what their answer is? My quarterback will bail me out. That ain't the answer when you're a coach.
He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. So this is my first takeaway from the conference championship weekend. And I just saw some breaking news, so let me get to that in between my two takes. Some pretty big breaking news. Ravens can't flinch. Bills flinched. He just showed Kincaid not reeling in that catch on 4th down from Josh Allen. Spectacular effort from Josh Allen. And I saw a lot of people comparing that drop to Mark Andrews. I'm gonna pump some brakes on that. There's some similarities, but let's pump the brakes before we call them exact. But in the end, where there is a similarity is it was both tight ends. Both tight ends had a shot at the ball, and both tight ends flinched. People play Kansas City, and they got that fear in the back of their head. Can I really pull this out? Can I really do this? They beat me so many times before, and every time they win again, it's just more in the back of your head. Can I do this? Can I do this? Rex said it. The Chiefs go in there expecting to win. Chiefs go in there expecting to win. Absolutely, they do. And it's not just Mahomes, and it's certainly led by Mahomes. But how many guys made plays? Kincaid didn't make it for Allen. Mark Andrews didn't make it for Lamar Jackson. Justin Reed comes up for the Chiefs. Trent McDuffie comes up. How about Spagnuolo, their defensive coordinator, calling the cornerback blitz at the exact right time? 4th down. You haven't seen it all game? Oh, here we go. It's coming. Not to mention Andy Reid. So it's not just the quarterback. And Patrick Mahomes did his thing too. They put the ball in his hands when they needed a touchdown, and he got it, ran it in. Patrick Mahomes did his thing. Make no mistake. But he didn't have a Kincaid dropping a ball. He didn't have a Mark Andrews dropping a ball. He had all these guys backing him up. So yes, it's led by Patrick Mahomes. It's led by Lamar Jackson. It's led by Josh Allen. But the whole team can't flinch. You got to go in like you know you can win. Like you know you can win. Some more from Get Up talking about the two quarterbacks. It started out with Mike Greenberg saying he didn't blame Lamar Jackson for the loss. Last week against the Bills, he doesn't blame Josh Allen. I get that. I wouldn't blame either one of them either. But let's make no mistake. There is a difference in how that game ended. Lamar came to play. Josh Allen had his chances, and not only did Kincaid drop it, but Josh Allen didn't perform on that last drive either. Let's jump in here.
I love Josh. No one, I don't think, in the media champions Josh more than me. He got the ball back, down 3, with a chance to go get it done.
And he threw that pass. That's what I'm talking about. Here's the thing, though.
What we got to stop doing is acting like that's an easy catch. And I get it. We're weighing in all the circumstances of the blitz coming free and Josh fading away. But when you look at the play from all 22, in a perfect world, he just throws it to the sideline and Dalton Kincaid continues to run under it, but he can't because the pressure gets there. It's a difficult. This isn't the Mark Andrews catch.
Nope.
Right. This is a difficult catch, but it's also the plays before that. And you look at this game in its entirety, Josh started off this game reckless, right? If we're looking at the stat sheet, Josh Allen fumbled the football 4 times, right? And if we're talking about other players, we're going to say that these things happen. I, too, agree. I do not blame this game on Josh, but I also say this, and as for Lamar, last week, Lamar didn't go win the game. Josh Allen didn't go win the game.
Yeah, I agree with RC there. Let's not act like the ending this against the Bills and Chiefs were the same as the Ravens and Bills. Okay, first of all, I went back and I rewatched that last drive. Josh Allen had 3 minutes and 30 seconds. He only needed 3 points. He got the ball at the 30. He did convert 1 first down with his legs. It was a great play. But then on first down, he airmailed it. Second down, I'm trying to remember what happened there. Certainly not a big conversion. I think it was another incompletion. Third down, they do a quick screen play out to his right, gets about 5 yards, and then it's 4th and 5. And then that's where he made a spectacular throw while getting hit, and Kincaid didn't catch it. But the 2 drives are not the same. The 2 drives are not the same. Josh Allen had 6 plays with 330, only needing three points, and he converted once with his legs. And so we can all put it on Kincaid, which, by the way, was a much more difficult catch than Mark Andrews. And I'm going to show those side by side in a minute. But he did not make the plays needed to beat Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes did. And also, I agree with RC. In the beginning, if you watched it, there were many fumbles by Josh Allen, and he didn't even mention the many throws that were reckless and could have been picked off on that first drive alone. Now, Josh had a good game outside of those things, and those fumbles did not turn into turnovers, which was some luck by him. But at the end of the day, people are flinching in the playoffs. Josh Allen and the Bills did it. The Ravens with their 3 turnovers. Lamar did it in the first half with his 2 turnovers. Mark Andrews did it with the game on the line with the 2-point conversion. The quarterbacks and the surrounding cast around the quarterbacks cannot flinch. Now, here's probably my favorite take. The next show, right after Get Up, Shannon Sharpe talks about fear, and how that's the biggest weapon a quarterback can have.
Nobody feeling sorry for a man making $50 million a year and he got his butt kicked again. It doesn't matter what he played. He had Patrick Mahomes in his building last year, and Patrick Mahomes put his foot up on his couch. He goes to Patrick Mahomes' house, and Patrick Mahomes kick him out. It does not matter. It's 1-5. These guys can beat any of these other quarterbacks. Lamar can beat Burrow. Josh Allen can beat Burrow, yada, yada, yada. The greatest advantage an athlete can have is another man's fear. Ooh. They fear Patrick. Ooh. They know.
Talk this,
They know if it's a one-score game, they can't see it.
And we talk.
I just need to pause that right there. The greatest attribute that a quarterback can have is that others fear you. Listen, nobody's going to go in like, biting their nails and admitting that there's fear. But when you start playing uncharacteristically, you start playing different than you do during the regular season, you can call it fear. You can call it flinching. You can call it nerves. You can call it anxiety. You can call it whatever you want. But when you play so much different than you have previously to meeting Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs or just being in the playoffs in general, fear can be on the table. Why can't it be on the table? You're so nervous you're going to do something wrong that it's almost like you do. It's almost like you do. Then let's continue this conversation with RC.
Talk about the legacies of these humans, right? Obviously, this was a chance for Josh Allen to change his legacy. I don't believe that his legacy takes a hit. That dude played as well as he could have possibly played. But here's my thing. I don't feel sorry for Lamar Jackson. I don't feel sorry for Joe Burrow.
Nope.
I don't feel sorry for Josh Allen. Because if you want to go get it, you understand that dude is standing out there.
Yeah.
I do not see people, and Stephen A., you know more basketball than I do. I do not see people having a funeral procession for Patrick Ewing. I don't see people doing that for Charles Barkley. I don't see people doing that for Karl Malone. You know why? Because that dude was out there. You understood what it was every offseason. You got to go get Michael Jordan. You got to go get Patrick Mahomes. And Josh Allen had the football down 3 with a ton of time on the clock. You got to go make the plays.
I agree with that.
I don't blame it on Josh. This isn't Josh's fault. But to change his legacy, he had to go do it.
I agree.
Everything there is true. He doesn't feel sorry for Lamar Jackson. He doesn't feel sorry for Josh Allen. He doesn't feel sorry for Joe Burrow. Good. And speaking from a Ravens point of view, I don't want that pity. This is why I was saying last week when I was being hard on Mark Andrews for not doing the interview. And then Dan Orlovsky comes along and he's like, do you know that he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders? Do you understand that, that's his guy and he didn't make the catch? And he's like, and I get it. It's coming from a kind, compassionate spot. You're trying to be compassionate. But there's a encouraging compassionate, and then there's a devouring compassionate. I don't want your devouring compassion. Your devouring compassion says, oh, you just go home. You don't need to do the press conference. Lamar, he's the leader. He's got more weight on his shoulders, but he can handle that weight. He'll go do the press conference and he'll speak for you. That's a devouring compassion rather than, hey, I hear you. This is tough. I understand that you're gutted and I feel that for you, but you got to get out there. You got to get out there so that you aren't saying the moment is bigger than you. I don't want your devouring compassion. I don't want RC feeling sorry for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Because then it just means, do you think that Patrick Mahomes needs his pity? Do you think that Travis Kelce needs his pity? This is why I reject wanting to always be the underdog. Because when the expectations are high, you cannot flinch. You cannot have fear. You don't want the expectations because you're afraid of the expectations. You don't want to be the top dog because you're afraid to be the top dog. You want to be the underdog because if you do fail, nobody expected anything from you anyway. I don't want you to feel sorry for Lamar Jackson. I don't want you to feel sorry for the Ravens because the Ravens are big enough to do this. They don't need devouring compassion. Bring your compassion, but encouraging compassion, saying you can do this, because the rest is just fear in my view. So that first takeaway from championship weekend, if you want to play better in the playoffs, Ravens, if you want to eventually take down Patrick Mahomes, which Josh Allen couldn't do, you cannot flinch. You cannot fear. You cannot be afraid of big expectations. All right, let's get to some breaking news. Let me see if I can do this on the fly here. Let me see if I can share my screen, because I did not get this. Let me bring up share that. All right. So right here, according to Jeremy Fowler, here we go. Sources tell Jeremy Fowler that the Ravens and offensive coordinator Todd Monken are finalizing a contract extension. That's great news to me. You keep this man and Lamar Jackson together. We don't need to start all over on offense again. Lamar has spoken to that. He talked about how in his second year, he felt so much more comfortable. And then remember in his first year, how much he was smiling around Todd Monken, talking about how funny he is. They had a relationship there that he never had with Greg Roman. The way he empowered Lamar Jackson. The way Lamar Jackson has started to, whatever, you want to blitz me, I got it. You want to do man, I got it. You want to do zone, I got it. Because I'm making calls at the line of scrimmage. The way that they understand each other and like each other, I'm here for. So let's continue on. Jeremy writes, Baltimore led the NFL in offense. Lamar Jackson is coming off his best statistical season ever. And that's after already winning 2 MVPs. And Monken has head coaching interest. Woo-wee. So you mean to tell me, finally, for the first time in 3 years, the Ravens will not have turnover at the defensive coordinator position, so we don't need to take, what was it, the first 10 games for Zach Orr and this defense to get on the same page? So Zach Orr is returning. Dean Pease is returning as a consultant. The vast majority of the starters on the defense is returning. I believe Brandon Stevens is an unrestricted free agent that Eric DeCosta all but said we're not re-signing. He didn't say it in those words, but he certainly basically implied that. Okay, so your one starter that you're losing is probably one that you would be okay with losing, to put it politely. I'm trying to remember if there were, I think there might be one other starter. I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but it's 1 or 2 starters that were not returning on defense. But you got your defensive coordinator, you got your consultant, and you got probably 90% of the defensive starters returning. Okay, feel good about that. Then on the offensive side, you're going to have Lamar and Monken together for the 3rd season in a row. Don't have to start all over. And on top of that, the vast majority of your offense is returning. The unrestricted free agents that you have are Patrick Ricard, who both Eric DeCosta and Patrick Ricard both said they wanted him to retire as a Raven. He's not going to be a lot of money. Fullbacks don't cost a lot anyway, and there's not a whole lot of fullbacking jobs out there And there's no way Patrick Ricard is going to find, a massive gap in the market between the Ravens and what somebody else could have. And then he's going to come back to Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Oh, and by the way, Derrick Henry himself last week put up a story that said, run it back. Guys, the talent is there. 80% of the starters are returning. You got both coordinators returning, and obviously not happy for some of you guys, but the head coach is returning. Which brings us back to the 5 takeaways I'm talking about today from Conference Championship weekend, because it's these 5 things that need to change in order for you to get over the hump. So they're working on an extension. It's not a done deal yet, but we feel confident in it because all the head coaching jobs, save one, which is the Saints, all the head coaching jobs have dried up. You're not leaving for another offensive coordinator position. Why would you do that when you got Lamar and Derrick Henry? Okay. And so what you basically have to do if Ricard is going to be re-signed, you got to figure out your left tackle and your right guard. Ronnie Stanley may be re-signed. I don't know. It's going to be tough. He's definitely going to want to test the market. He's going to want to test the market. Why wouldn't he? He was definitely the comeback player of the year for the Ravens. Last time I looked on PFF, they had him as the 8th highest ranked unrestricted free agent about to hit the market. Left guard, you want to upgrade there anyway. And if we're talking about conference championship weekend takeaways, and I didn't have this ready, but to me, the teams that were the best in the trenches were winning those games. The Eagles, poor Jaden Daniels. On offense and defense, the Eagles, Howie has them, he's got it. He's got a lot of beef there in the trenches. A lot of big dudes in there. Bills, they didn't make it, but they had one of the best offensive lines. Disrupt the quarterback, stop the run with the defensive line, and on the offensive line, protect Lamar, open up some lanes for Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, and maybe Keaton Mitchell if he could get some snaps based off of the way the top 2 guys were playing. It was hard to get him in. The Ravens are going to run it back. Great news that they're going to extend, or at least they're working on an extension with Todd Monken. Let's get to some super chats here. Let me get back to, how do I stop sharing my screen here? There we go. Stop sharing. Okay. And then let's go over to some super chats. Captain Hard. Always appreciate you, Captain Hard. You're always giving super chats day in and day out. He says, I feel like we win that game against the Chiefs. SMH. Can't lie. I'd rather Mahomes get one. Or I prefer Mahomes get another one than Josh, Burrow, etc. gets one before Lamar. I agree. Although I wouldn't hate it if the Eagles won. I wouldn't hate it if the Eagles, because Eagles are just such a complete team. I don't know that people are going to be talking about Hurts as like, oh, he's like now the number 2 quarterback. I just don't see it. They've just got such a complete team. Saquon. I just don't know that without Saquon that they make it to the Super Bowl. So I agree with you. I'd prefer Mahomes to get one over the other guys. I also can appreciate greatness as much as I felt the same way about the Patriots. Just hated Tom Brady and the Patriots, but at the same time, I had to respect the greatness. And I kind of feel the same way about the Chiefs. Red Hood says, can we donate to Dalton's charity? Want to make sure he's okay. But seriously, how poetic was that loss? Does he have a charity? I'm sure he does. Most NFL players do. Isaiah C278 says, took a little break from the media because of our loss, but glad to be watching my fave podcast again. Appreciate you, Isaiah. I know a lot of people had to take a break. I'm glad you're back. Live this off season together. You know, we've got coverage every single day. Not going to stop. The flu's not going to stop us. Might knock Bobby down for a second, but I tell you, my guy will be back. Oceans says, if we were playing the Chiefs last night instead of the Bills, these hypocrites would be flaming Lamar. Allen gets way too much of a pass. I will say, Oceans, I thought that they were fair with Lamar last week. A lot of them said the same type of stuff for Lamar last week, that it wasn't his fault. They talked about his bad first half, but that he overcame it, and that he came up big on that last drive, and that Mark Andrews let him down. I feel like they were fair to Lamar last week. Oceans, you let me know. But I covered it. We brought in all the clips, at least the clips that I had heard, that I'd gone out and searched for. But yeah, I mean, I think we just heard them say, I don't feel sorry for Josh Allen. I don't feel sorry for Lamar Jackson. I don't feel sorry for Joe Burrow. So I think that they're, at least these last 2 weeks, not always, the last 2 weeks, I feel like it's been somewhat fair. Or maybe you're thinking of something that I haven't heard yet. So let me know if that's the case. Red Hood. Ravens have to look at the Eagles and replicate the success. We need to build a team around Lamar. We have talent, but we need a unit. I think that what I would like to see is to build up the offensive and defensive lines. That's what I would like to see. I think Michael Pierce might be aging out. Get yourself, a huge defensive tackle that's just a disruptor. Some people are asking for a pass rusher. I'm cool with that too. But it's tougher to get those elite pass rushers when you're number 27 in the draft. And I don't know that anybody's letting their elite pass rushers go in free agency. So to me, a good spot that you could do that, you don't have to do it in the first round, maybe in that second or third round. You could get yourself a Pro Bowl guard. Or maybe in that first round, you can get yourself another right tackle, and then you move Roger Rosengarten over. But that's what I would like to see. I think that the weapons are in Baltimore. I wouldn't hate, another wide receiver depth there. They're going to ride with Rashad and Zay, though. Wouldn't hate that. But I would like to follow the Eagles in terms of the offensive and defensive lines. All right. Just one couple more thoughts on this. Do not flinch before I get to my next takeaway. Look at Patrick Mahomes. I'll even make this bigger here so you can see it. Look at Patrick Mahomes' passing chart from last night. Look at all those completions, 10 yards, within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, or even behind the line of scrimmage. He had 18 completions. Should we count this? How many were 10 yards or less? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. He had 2 passes that were 10 yards or more. Just 2. He was insanely efficient. Next gen stats. Patrick Mahomes set season highs in drop back success rate, 64.7%, and a drop back EPA of plus 21.5. His top 3 games by dropback EPA this season have all come over his last 4 games. I said this last week when I was talking about Lamar and like his next step, because Lamar can put on the cape. So can Patrick Mahomes. The question is when do you risk putting on the cape, right? And so to me, as I said last week, putting the cape on when it's tied at 7 and it's in second quarter and you just got a bad snap, not worth putting on the cape because so much bad could happen. There's too much to risk there. But if it's fourth quarter, you're tied and you need a scoring drive, or you're down by 7 or whatever, then you need to risk putting on the cape more. Patrick Mahomes is almost not put on the cape all regular season unless it becomes the fourth quarter. And then he does it again in the playoffs. And then look at Josh Allen last week. Same thing. He didn't ever put on a cape. He never needed to because the Ravens kept shooting themselves in the foot. Look at this. Look at this chart. This is not a beautiful chart. Most of those, he had 1 completion beyond 10 yards. It's about playing mistake-free. All right, here's my second takeaway. Let's move on to my second takeaway from Conference Championship weekend. I have been feeling this way for a couple of days, but I didn't want to be emotional. You know what I mean? Sometimes you come out of a game, and I purposely do this, like after losses. I try not to sound off on anybody. I try to be fair, but I try not to sound off. Because I don't want it to be emotional. I don't want it to be emotional. But I've had a few days to think about this. It's been obviously about a week now. And after thinking about it and then watching this weekend, I said last week that I'm not in the group that says, okay, yeah, you got to cut Mark Andrews. But I'm to the point, I'm ready to demote Mark Andrews in big moments. I feel like I've just seen too many times him falter when the Ravens can't go to him in big moments, whether it's in the playoffs or in a game. Like, again, I'm thinking of the Steelers game when they went to him. Remember last week I showed screenshots of him missing passes in the exact same situation to the right, this little dump out to him from Lamar, and like it just didn't work. So there were all of those, but then there's more than that. How about this right here? 1057 The Fan, Inside Access, put up these stats. I'll make it a little bit bigger for us. Mark Andrews with Lamar in the regular season versus the playoffs. Okay. His target percentage, 21.9 in the regular season, goes to 19.7 in the playoffs. Not a huge dip. Less than 2 percentage points. But look at his EPA per target. A 0.42 in the regular season, a negative 0.46 in the playoffs. What's 1D per target? We'll move on from that. Drops. 4.8%. Only 4.8% in the regular season. 20% drops in the playoffs. Success rate. 56.3 in the regular season. Drops to 42.5% in the playoffs. Receiving percentage, 68.5%, drops to 60%. Touchdowns per target, 8.8% to 0%. And then somebody on Twitter put up a highlight reel of how many times he didn't come up big in the playoffs. Whether they're drops or maybe couldn't quite put the drop stat on him. But he's like, he doesn't make a play. Yeah. And again, I know everybody's comparing these two drops. And I get it. Like, Kincaid could have caught that for Allen. Obviously, Mark Andrews could have caught this for Lamar. But these two are not the same. These two are not the same. Kincaid diving. And he's in traffic. And his quarterback's under duress. Not quite sure when the ball's coming. Mark Andrews, it was like a rainbow pass to him, nice and soft. What I do for my daughter who's 7. I don't throw a dart to her, right? Try to make it nice and easy, put it nice and soft. It's right there in the breadbasket. So listen, I respect Mark Andrews. I love Mark Andrews. I'm okay with Mark Andrews still being on this team because he does produce a lot. And I know he and Lamar have a lot of chemistry. But when you have Isaiah Likely right there, and you've seen how many times you've gone to Mark Andrews in big moments, for me, it just happened too many times where he didn't come through. Now, if there was nobody else on the team, it's like, all right, well, we got to ride with Mark again. But there's Isaiah Likely right behind him. And bringing this back to that first takeaway where you can't flinch or you can't fear, he's flinched too often. And for me, him not showing up for the press conference told me a lot about him mentally. I know some of you feel like it's petty where people are saying he should have been there. And my reasoning for him being there has nothing to do with like what he would have said or could have said or any of that. If you reduce it to like, oh, you guys are looking for quotes, then you're right. That's petty. You're right. But that's not how I look at it. I look at it as you want your number called upon in the final moments of the biggest game. You want your number called upon. You think you're ready for that. Then you got to take what comes with it whether you succeed or don't succeed. And to me, what he said to me by not showing up to that press conference is this moment's too big for me. The moment's too big for me. So to me, it wasn't just that he dropped it, but then he couldn't even face the music afterwards. To me, my takeaway is you have to demote Mark Andrews in big moments. Keep him on the team. He'll produce a lot. He's the all-time Ravens touchdown leader. But I'm calling Likely's name. I'm calling Derrick Henry's name. I'm calling Lamar's name. Keep Lamar and let him run it. I'm calling all three of them. If it's going through the air, and I know Zay Flowers had that one punch out, but that wasn't, he didn't perform. He was trying to do too much. It's what Mike Tomlin says. I prefer to tell somebody, whoa, then go. I'm calling Zay before I call Mark. I'm calling Likely before I call Mark. I'm calling Derrick Henry before I call Mark. And I'm calling Lamar Jackson before I call Mark. That's my second takeaway. And I've seen several super chats come in. So I want to get to them before I move on from this topic in case you guys are talking to me about this very topic. Okay, we did that one. Okay, we did that one. Okay, Captain Hart is back. The sidekick doesn't make plays. Look at the Chiefs. Worthy, a rookie, came up and made a bad pass good. We don't get that. I feel like I've seen it from time to not time, but not in these big moments, to Captain Hart's points. Not in the biggest of big moments. And you're right. And this is not to take away from Patrick Mahomes. There has to be something going on where, like, all of the... How about Juju Smith-Schuster coming in out of nowhere and making huge plays? Again, it comes back to this not flinching, and you just go in there expecting to win, unafraid. And maybe they're unafraid because they have a leader like Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce, who have all been there before. But all of a sudden, these guys, Juju Smith-Schuster, Worthy, I mean, these guys are coming from nowhere, making plays. I agree with you, Captain Hart. Red Hood, I still trust Andrews. I just hope we finally get a true number one wide receiver, put pressure off of him. I would like to know why you trust him. Again, I think he's a great dude, and I'm not burying him. I'm not saying to cut him. But why? Tell me why the Ravens should go to Andrews, call his number over Zay or Derrick or Likely. There's only one guy. There's only so many of these big moments to come up. Why should his number still be called? And I'm not trying to bash you, Red Hood. I respect your opinion. I'm just wondering where that trust comes from. Like, are you just trying to be nice to Andrews and build him up? Or do you really, like, say, yeah, call his number again? He's got it. I really believe that. I'm just curious about that. All right. Tinsay says Bills can't beat Chiefs. Cincy had, but they don't get past Lamar. Lamar can, but Ravens don't use or bring best pieces like these QBs for leverage. #Vault. Bills did beat the Chiefs in the regular season. Josh Allen is now 0-4 against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the playoffs. And that's when it matters most. That's when it matters most. All right. Wanted to see if, all right. On to the next takeaway. After watching conference weekend, I feel pretty good about my NFL quarterback rankings. And I'm only doing the top four. The top four. Here are my rankings. Obviously, we have Patrick Mahomes number one. Even the most loving, encouraging champion of Lamar Jackson would probably admit Patrick Mahomes is alone at number one. He is a 3-time Super Bowl champion. He's going there for the 4th time in his career. He's only 29. He's a 3-time Super Bowl MVP and a 2-time MVP in the regular season. And I could keep going, but those are obviously his biggest accolades. I mean, he's going again. Here we go. Adam Schefter. With tonight's win in the AFC Championship game, Patrick Mahomes now has 17 postseason wins. 17! He was drafted in 2017, right? He's got 1 year over Lamar and Josh Allen, maybe 2 or 3 years over Joe Burrow. 17 postseason wins, breaking a tie with Joe Montana for the second most wins by a quarterback in playoff history, and trailing only Tom Brady. Tom Brady has 35. So Mahomes has a way to go. But Tom Brady played until he was 40 plus. Mahomes is 29. It's crazy. He now has 5 Super Bowl finals appearances in a 6-year span. Look at this. Put up together this graphic for 6-year spans across sports. The Chiefs have been there 5 times in 6 years. Burrow knocked him out several years ago. Burrow's still living off of that glory. It was a good win, but my goodness, are people still giving him glory for that? Woof. Okay, so they've been there 5 times in the last 6 years. The Warriors went 5 times between 2015 and 19. The Yankees twice in the 90s and thousands. Lakers went 4 times in the 80s, 1980s. Or, I keep wanting to say Orioles. Oilers 5 times between 83 and 88. And then the Islanders 5 times between 80 and 84. I mean, this isn't just like phenomenal within the NFL. I mean, they're going across all sports, the NBA, MLB, NHL. It's next level. Of course, he's number 1. So there's a big drop off. And then I would agree with most people who say that it's like Lamar, Josh, and Joe all kind of competing for that number 2 spot behind Mahomes. It's kind of a group. But if I had to like split hairs between this next tier of quarterbacks of Lamar, Allen, and Joe Burrow, I put Lamar number 2. I'm sure non-Ravens fans would call me biased, but this is the reason why. Lamar Jackson has for sure been the most consistent during the regular season. It's undeniable. He is about to have his 3rd MVP. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow have 0. Josh Allen was drafted with Lamar. Joe Burrow, I believe, came the next year. Maybe it was 2020. Lamar Jackson is for sure the most consistent and the best in the regular season. Now, if you want to talk postseason, both Lamar and Josh have not advanced past the AFC Championship, Conference Championship. Neither one have advanced. Josh may have a couple more playoff wins, but a lot of them are in the wild card round. Lamar had more first round buys. Okay. And so you can like play these games in the postseason, but at the end of the day, both keep getting knocked out by Patrick Mahomes. Neither one of them have advanced to a Super Bowl. So to me, if you both have only advanced to the AFC Championship game, you both have not surpassed Patrick Mahomes. Therefore, you got to go back to the regular season, and Lamar Jackson wins that easily with his 3 MVPs. And then his 3 first-team All-Pros and his 4 Pro Bowls. Josh Allen has been a second-team All-Pro twice, has never made the first-team All-Pro, and is a 3-time Pro Bowler. Now, Joe Burrow, to me, again, he has advanced to a Super Bowl. So you could say, well, that puts him above Lamar and Josh. But to me, he's been too inconsistent. He's been living off of that for years. And he just hasn't gotten his team to the postseason enough. And oh, by the way, Lamar Jackson is like 10-1 against him head-to-head. Something crazy. Lamar's like 10-1 against the Bengals. And I think Burrow's only beaten him once. So Bengals fans could say, well, he's made it to a Super Bowl and maybe lift him above the other 2. That's fine. You can have that argument. But how many times has he missed the postseason altogether? He couldn't get him there this year. Lamar and Josh Allen have 6 playoff bursts in 7 seasons. One of those playoff bursts that the Ravens got, Lamar Jackson was knocked out with an injury. And so the Ravens went because he got them so far ahead. He had the Ravens number 1 in the AFC, and they dropped and ended up making it into the wild card. But without him putting him even close, they wouldn't even have had that berth. So the Ravens have had 6 berths in 7 seasons. The only 2 times Lamar didn't play in the postseason is when he was injured. So both Lamar and Josh Moore consistently get their teams to the playoffs. Joe Burrow has gotten his team to the playoffs 2 times in 5 seasons. So that is why I have it. That's fine. We can put them in the same tier because none of them have gone far, have separated them out from the other 2. But to me, Lamar's 2A in that tier. And then you can argue from there who's what. Okay, the 4th takeaway, which we already had this takeaway before conference championship game weekend, but it drives the point even more. Jack Andrade put out this tweet, and this was before the Bills and Chiefs game at 6:30 last night. This is before then. So this is after the Eagles and Commanders game, where the Commanders just kept coughing up the ball left and right. I mean, again, another talented team, but like you can't be coughing up the ball like that. So Jack tweets, now 10 straight NFL playoff games in which the winning team did not commit a single turnover, which is the longest streak ever. Most such games in one postseason. So it's the most in one postseason where they've had that streak. Most playoff games won by a team without a turnover, single season all time. 2024, 10, 2023, 9, 2022, 8, 2027. So there were 10 straight playoff games in this 2024/2025 postseason where the winning team did not have a turnover. Finally, it was the Chiefs who broke that streak because there was that fumble lost by Patrick Mahomes. So the one team that bucked that trend is the team that's going to the Super Bowl for the 3rd time in a row, 4th time in the Patrick Mahomes era. You are not special. Just because you're a talented team, Ravens, Commanders, Bills, whoever, you are not special enough to lose the ball and still win in the playoffs. You got to play clean football. You have to win the turnover margin. The only team right now that showed that they're special enough to overcome that are the Chiefs. These other teams aren't the Chiefs. They're not the Chiefs. They don't have the pedigree of the Chiefs. Win the turnover battle. As Cole Jackson, I shared this last week, Cole Jackson, 2018, Ravens, 3 turnovers on offense, only got 1 takeaway. 2019, 3 turnovers on offense, 0 takeaways. 2020, a turnover on offense, 0 takeaways. 2022, 2 turnovers, 1 takeaway. 2023, 3 turnovers, 0 takeaways. And then 2024, 3 turnovers, 0 takeaways. So in 6 playoff losses, that's a negative 13 turnover differential. Ravens aren't special. They cannot overcome this. They may have been able to overcome the one interception early in the game, 2nd quarter from Lamar to Bateman. They could have overcome that, but you can't have 2 more and say, oh, I'm going to beat you anyway. Not in the divisional round. You can maybe do that in the regular season against, a 500 team, losing team. You can't do that in the playoffs. You're not special enough for that. Almost nobody is. Speaking of that then, shooting yourselves in the foot, Marlon Humphrey tweeted out last night after the Eagles just trounced the Commanders. Marlon Humphrey says, I thought the Eagles were the best team we played this year. Shrug emoji. I agree. I feel like the Eagles was the one time where it was like, dang, they're just here to play. This wasn't like the Ravens just shooting themselves in the foot. So one of Marlon's followers says, yeah, they were the only team that, quote, truly beat us. Marlon responds, bingo. The rest, we beat ourselves sadly. That is the sad part of it. Okay, my 5th takeaway from this weekend is more of a funny one. And that's that Marlon Humphrey is the biggest Ravens troll on this roster. And there are some trolls out there. Okay. Lamar Jackson himself, I feel like he trolls as Especially he trolled a lot, I felt like, during the contract situation, the negotiations there. There's some trolls. Matt Judon, when he used to be a Raven, he was pretty good troll. Marlon Humphrey is that guy. He is that guy. So we all remember last week, this kind of went, miniature viral. There was an unnamed Bills player after they beat the Ravens who said now those 9 Ravens Pro Bowlers can go to the Pro Bowl. Because Pro Bowl, you can't go to the Pro Bowl if you're in the Super Bowl, because the Pro Bowl is played 1 week before the Super Bowl, right? So he's giving a little dig. Well, now all those Pro Bowlers can go and actually have fun at the Pro Bowl, acting like the Bills weren't going to be available. He got a little bit too far in front of his skis, though, because they still had to get over the Chiefs, which they did not do. And in Rex Ryan's words, they flinched and feared the Chiefs. So now Marlon kind of trolled back, went up to the top rope, tried to lay a pile driver there. He said, well, after the Pro Bowl, maybe we can all go and enjoy Cancun. So all those Pro Bowlers that didn't make it for the Bills still won't go to the Pro Bowl. And so, but here's the funny thing. I like that Marlon Humphrey went out, and I like that Marlon Humphrey put his face behind his quote. Whoever this unnamed person is, if you're going to take a jab with your chest out. Don't hide behind some anonymous quote here to Albert Breer. Go out there and either say it on record to Albert or do it on social media, just like Marlon Humphrey. So Marlon Humphrey will enjoy his Pro Bowl. I'm sure he will. And then they can all enjoy the Cancun, and they can keep trolling each other while the Chiefs and Eagles go on to the Super Bowl. Neither one of them are really winning this bout here. But I guess the Ravens and those, and it's 10 Pro Bowl now, by the way, because both Ronnie Stanley and Kyle Van Noy are now in as alternates, but Zay Flowers is out nursing that knee. Speaking, though, of trolling, we all know that Kyle Hamilton has finished his 3rd year, so he's eligible for a contract extension. The Ravens could just keep him on his 4th year and play him on that rookie contract in the 4th year, and they could even hit him with the 5th year contract. What's the word I'm looking for here? The fifth year option. They could use the 5th year option and really just have him under contract for 2 more years. But some are speculating, and I'm going to get into this more later this week. Some are speculating, should Eric DeCosta just lock him up now? Because the longer you wait, the more expensive he's going to be. He's going to be expensive now, but the longer you wait, it's just going to be more expensive. So maybe they could go ahead and sign him for a 5-year contract extension. Well, Marlon Humphrey knows that that's a possibility. And so he decided to go and troll on Instagram with this video.
Yes, sir. Deal's done. That's that deal done handshake. The deal's done. Yeah, 25.
So for the audio only people, this is Marlon Humphrey taking a video of Kyle Hamilton in the weight room. And his caption is, "The deal is done!" ! Money bag, money bag, money bag emoji. Saying the deal is done. Now, I guess there's a chance that it's already done, although I highly doubt it because the season just ended a week ago. If they do a contract, I imagine it's going to be a mega deal. But Eric DeCosta doesn't mind negotiating in the middle of the season. We've seen that before. He could have gotten a head start with Kyle Hamilton. But something tells me the deal is not officially done, but it's done. There's no way that the Ravens are going to let Kyle Hamilton out the door. Kyle Hamilton is one of those guys that you're like, you want him to be a Raven for life. When you draft somebody in the 1st round and he's an all-pro by his 2nd year, and then he saves the day in his 3rd year where your safety isn't cutting it and then your backup safety isn't cutting it, and the communication is bad, and so you can't use him as a chess piece anymore. So now you're going to move him back there to be that guy, and then it saves the defense by moving him back there. Was some other changes. Shout out Ardarius Washington. Shout out for him for sure. But Marlon Humphrey said himself that the biggest difference was moving Kyle Hamilton. So the goal, hopefully in the offseason, yes, to extend him, but also to get another free safety. Because then you can have that free safety, have Ardarius Washington, and then you're able to use Kyle Hamilton around more as a chess piece, because we all know we want more takeaways. And the more that you're able to confuse people, the more you can go let this man do his thing. But let's listen to that again. Let's listen to that again, because we want this deal to be done.
Yes, sir. Deal's done. That's that deal done handshake. The deal's done. Yeah, 25.
Well, get it done. If it's not done, let's get it done. Marlon Humphrey out here trolling, and I'm here for it. I'm so glad he's back on Twitter. I know a lot of people get annoyed by him. I'm just purely entertained because he's just unafraid to say whatever he wants. Okay, sixth and final takeaway from the weekend. Man, referees need to be held accountable too. A lot of times we'll talk about calls that are made on the field. And it's not very often that when I talk about them, I say, well, this is the difference in the game. It might happen once in a while, but it's not very often. And, but people automatically, because you bring up the calls and bad calls that are made, people act like you're using that as an excuse. No, I bring it up because we scrutinize players to the nth degree. How many times have we talked about Mark Andrews since Saturday? And rightfully so. But I feel like NFL referees need to be held accountable too. And let me tell you why I bring this up and why, it's another takeaway from this weekend. Let's blow this up a little bit. So essentially, through their fining system, the NFL has admitted that they were wrong on this call with Lamar Jackson running out of bounds and he was tackled. Jonah Schaefer, Baltimore Banner, tweets, the Bills defensive lineman, Ed Oliver, was fined $16,883 for unnecessary roughness, is what they termed it, for this hip drop tackle on Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson in the second quarter. Oliver wasn't flagged on the play. Neither was Marlon Humphrey on his, and I'm going to get to Marlon's in just a second. So neither Ed was flagged, and neither was Marlon. He got fined too, and I'm going to show you that screen grab in a second. And when you miss these blatant calls, as Jonah says, it's a bad look for the refs. Look at that. It's as clear as day, a hip drop tackle, not to mention they are way out of bounds. I wish I could play it for you. Maybe to me, it was just for sure Patrick Mahomes would have gotten this call. For sure. Let me show you the other angle of it. Do I have it here? Look at the angle. Guys, this is how Mark Andrews hurt his ankle against the Bengals 2 years ago. That could have been obviously season ending because it's in the playoffs. But it could have dragged into next season till who knows how long? November, December? Look at his leg get caught under there. They missed it. Meanwhile, Jay Morrison, who's a friend of the show, has been on before, who covers the Bengals, he was putting up statistics. And I don't buy into the theory that there's scripts and all that kind of stuff. But for sure, there's no doubt in my mind that Patrick Mahomes would have gotten that call, whether they called it hip drop tackle or hit late, unnecessary, whatever they wanted to call it. So Jay Morrison says, here's the quarterbacks who have been hit the most in the postseason from 2018 to present, starting 2018, and how many roughing penalties they've drawn. Now, Patrick Mahomes easily has been hit the most. That's a volume stat. That's also because he's played in so many postseason games, so he's going to have more. We're going to have to do some math here. But he's got 7 roughing penalties. Okay, so let me get out my calculator. let's do this math. And I'm not the biggest mathematician, so if I get this wrong, you let me know. But it's 7 divided by 109. So that's about 6.5% that he gets called. Josh Allen, he had 64 quarterback hits. He's gotten 2 called on him. So we'll do, that's about 3% of the time he gets called. Okay, let's drop down to Lamar Jackson. He's got okay, it's 0%. I don't even have to bring out the calculator for that. Lamar Jackson, 49 quarterback hits in the postseason, gets 0. Now listen, we could take each one. Maybe some of those 7 are legit that Patrick Mahomes got, but I bet 7 of them are pretty controversial. And here's one. Look at how far out of bounds they are. It's a hip drop tackle. He's got his ankle cut underneath him. Lamar Jackson does. And this for sure should have been one. And probably others. So point being, well, let's get to Marlon Humphreys, and then I'll make the overall point, which is what I did in the beginning. So Marlon Humphrey got fined for unnecessary roughness on Josh Allen. So Josh Allen got this call, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. He deserved this. So Marlon Humphrey got fined $45,020 for unnecessary roughness with the use of his helmet on this hit against quarterback Josh Allen. No flag was thrown. A lot of people asked, now why did Marlon Humphrey get fined $45,000 for a helmet-to-helmet hit, which is sometimes bang bang, and then Oliver was only fined $16,000? Just to be clear, and a lot of fans miss this, you get fined more when you're a repeat offender. Marlon Humphrey has already been fined earlier for these type of hits. So then it becomes more. It's not because hip drops are fined one way and then helmet to helmet are fined another. It's that there are tiers. And it's all predetermined. You could go look it up. I don't know if it's on NFLPA. It might be there and NFL website. But if you Google it, you can see what happens when there's repeat offenses. Okay. So Marlon Humphrey doesn't have an agent. So he found out about this from Tom Pelissero with the rest of us. And he quote retweeted this and said, I guess when you don't have an agent, you find out you get fined on social media. That's a big chunk of change. And I agree with Warren Sharpe here. He says, if you're going to dock a player $45,000 for a hit that wasn't even flagged, then you better dock the ref as well, he says. He goes on to say this is a money grab the league has going where they flag only what they want during the game and then clean up with player fines a week later. And he calls it utter BS. I don't know if I'm all in on this money grab part where they're not seeing it, so they won't flag it here because they don't want to, and then they get it later. I don't know about all that. I'm not ready to go there yet. But I agree that referees need to be held accountable. And it has to be more than, because they say, well, they do get grades. And then so with those grades, it determines what games they're able to call in the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. But the players have stats too. They get graded by their teams. They get graded, and so they get that decides their snaps. It decides whether they're going to be called upon in big moments. And so I don't know what the answer is. I mean, they're not, obviously the referees aren't making as much as the players, so you're not going to, fine them as much. But we're at the point now where it's like you can't even talk about poor calls without people saying, "Oh, you're whining," and saying it's what decided the game. Like if you even bring it up. And so I feel like they need to be better, just like the players need to be better. It needs to be talked about. Bad calls need to be called out, just like bad plays get called out. All right. Yeah. The next up is quick hit. So let's jump over to some super chats. Let me check in on you guys. Let's see where Red Hood said he's still okay. We're at Dreams. Dreams, what's up? Thank you. Appreciate you. Dream says Eagles take advantage of their rookie contracts and spend wisely. Baltimore drafts well and spends when necessary. They just never can get out of their own way in the playoffs. And we need a game wrecker. I think both the Eagles and both Philadelphia and Baltimore draft well. And you might argue that Baltimore even drafts better because Baltimore has more draft picks playing in the NFL right now than any other team, whether it's for their own team or whether it's for another team. There are more drafted Ravens players playing in the NFL right now than any other team. I also think for the most part, they spend wisely. I haven't watched the Eagles as much in maybe some free agent signings that didn't go well. So it would be hard for me to compare the two, but obviously Eric DeCosta has some marks on his record. Again, at the time it was celebrated, but Marcus Williams didn't pan out. Earl Thomas didn't pan out. I'm trying to think of some others that didn't pan out. But I will say on the reverse side, it's rare that Eric DeCosta chooses not to sign somebody and then that player goes off and plays better elsewhere. Like Geno Stone didn't go off and play better elsewhere. Patrick Queen, do you guys think he played better with the Steelers? I don't think so. But he still played well. He played pretty well. But anywho, good comparisons here. But I do think Howie has I think Howie's put together a more all-around team this year. And that's saying something because I think the Ravens had a Super Bowl caliber at roster. I think they've had one for several years. I feel like Eric DeCosta has put them together. They just got to punch the ticket when it counts. And I agree, Dreams, that the Ravens need to get out of their own way in the playoffs. 100%. Game wrecker, I'm here for that. All right. Kobe says, I'm okay with Mark staying on the team, but there's no excuse for a team captain to duck the media 2 days in a row. Agreed. There's a higher standard for him. Agreed. Demote him in big moments. I'm calling other people's numbers first. Jamie, Sarah, where would you include Bateman now in the list of names you'd call since he stepped up way more in this past season? That's a good question because I was thinking about his name when I was listing him off. There's still been too many moments with Rashad Bateman that gives me a little bit pause. And I do think that he has stepped up. I agree with your overall point. But there's something to the idea that most of Lamar's picks this season came while targeting Rashad. You know what I mean? There was that one in the beginning of the season, I believe it was against the Raiders, where Bateman had the ball in his hands and somebody else just wrestled away from him. And that was an interception. There was the one where he and Lamar had the miscommunication in the first game against the Steelers. And then that last interception against the Bills, it was targeting Rashad. Now, Lamar took blame for it, which I appreciate. And I do believe he needs to accept part of the blame. I don't know about all of it. Because he said he should have looked off the safety. At the same time, he and Rashad weren't on the same page because he was throwing it for one route and Rashad was throwing another route or running another route. So to me, there's still been too many. I mean, Lamar had 4 interceptions in the regular season, 1 in the postseason. So that's 5 total. 3 of them were while targeting Rashad. So Rashad isn't quite there for me yet. I still might put Mark Andrews above Rashad. That could change, though. I feel like Rashad still deserves the chances because his trajectory is like this, right? Whereas I've seen so much of Mark in big moments that I'm a little bit nervous now. But the more and more Rashad and Lamar get on the same page. See, the thing with Mark Andrews is he and Lamar are on the same page. It's rare that it's a miscommunication. It's just Mark not finishing. Whereas I think they're still, with more experience, Rashad and Lamar can still get on the same page. So for now, I'm keeping Mark ahead of Rashad, but I think Rashad could still overcome Mark. Great question, Jamie. All right, back to Red Hood. Oh, he's following up with my question to him about why is he still believing in Mark? I think this is what this is about. Red Hood says, I'm just a believer. I just like Lamar they're going to get over the playoff humps. I trust likely more, but I know Mark will win us a game we need. I love the redemption story. Okay. Didn't follow that all the way, but I think I get your overall point, Red, which is that you just overall believe, even though you believe in likely more, but you see, and that's fine. I would also like the redemption story. So you want to be a believer for that redemption story, but I just haven't seen it from Mark yet. In fact, I've seen the opposite too often. So I want to give somebody else a try, but I respect where you're at. You want to see that redemption story. I hear you. Kobe says a lack of turnovers for the defense has been a problem all year. Is the issue the Ravens are missing a game breaker or Kyle Hamilton having to play deep this year? Maybe a little bit of both. There was a time there, and one of the super chats brought this up last week, where the Ravens were like, because they were playing so poorly in the first 10 days, or excuse me, the first 10 weeks of the season, that they were like, no, we're not even like going to play hero ball. We're not there to try to get turnovers. Like, we just need to get back to the basics. Still, Marlon Humphrey did have the most interceptions of any cornerback in the league, but he just didn't have any in the postseason. So for sure, there needs to be like this game wrecker, for sure. Now, whether they can get that this offseason, I'm a little bit skeptical. It's hard to do that with the 27th pick. And I don't know that anybody's letting their game wreckers out there. Like nobody's like Myles Garrett, even if Myles Garrett forces himself out, it would have to be as a trade, right? Browns aren't trading him to the Ravens. TJ Watt, like these guys aren't out there. Why am I forgetting his name? What's his bucket from the Raiders? Who am I thinking of? I mean, he might be unhappy. Crosby. I don't know. Does he want out? Starting all over with the head coach again? Can make a play for him. But we'll see. They definitely, another game wrecker would always be welcome. Kobe again. NFL refs see Lamar as a runner, but not other quarterbacks. Which is funny because Mahomes got that call when he was a runner last week in the divisional round, which should not have been called. Captain Hard, every single free agent / drafted player Eagles got last offseason are either a Pro Bowler or All-Pro. I'm going to look that up. If that's true, that's pretty insane. That can't be true. Every drafted player, Captain Hard, every drafted player the Eagles got last offseason. So you're saying their picks from rounds 1 through 7 are all either Pro Bowlers or All-Pro? That would seem a little crazy. As much as I want to take your word for that. Let me know. That sounds a little crazy. Okay, quick hits and we'll get out of here. Been going for an hour and 15 here. Get this back up. Okay, just as a reminder, we're getting further away. Here's every NFL team's biggest accomplishment in the last 10 years. Only 2 teams have won multiple Super Bowls, Patriots and Kansas City. There are 4 teams that have won a Super Bowl over the last 10 years, Broncos, Eagles, Bucks, Rams. There are 5 more that have made a Super Bowl appearance, 49ers, Bengals, Falcons, Panthers, Seahawks. And then there's a whole bunch of people that have made it to a conference championship, including the Ravens. That Super Bowl win in 2012 is starting to feel a bit far away. I'll get more into the John Harbaugh conversation later this week. I do want to get to that. We haven't really sunk our teeth into it yet since the season ended. But to me, if you wanted to make your best argument to me to move on from Harbaugh, it's this. Not acting like it's his fault that the Ravens had 3 turnovers. I'm not buying that BS. I'm not buying that. But there's this overall argument that it's like, you know what? He's a good guy. He's been a great coach. He might even be a Hall of Fame coach. But sometimes you just need to turn the page. That, to me, is the best argument. I don't know that I'm making it. That, to me, is the best argument. Brian McFarland over at Ravens Salary Cap, writes for Russell Street Report, gave an update. Remember last week the Ravens signed 11 guys to future contracts, mostly their practice squad guys. But since you don't have practice squad in the offseason, it's just a future contract. So after they signed those 11, he gave a cap space update. So the Ravens are just under $6 million. It says they now have 53 players signed to 2025. This is just their position as of today. He said a lot will happen: cuts, signings, restructures, extensions between now and March 12th, when the 2025 league year begins. I'm probably going to send an invite out to Brian to really dig into the cap situation. Especially if Bobby can't make it back, it'd be great to have another voice on here, so I'm not like losing my voice. But I'm actually going pretty strong. I coached 3 basketball games on Saturday. One of them was a playoff game, and I was definitely yelling out to my team. But my voice is still going strong, luckily. But so just under $6 million. But of course, and he's talked about it elsewhere, if the Ravens wanted to, which I don't think they will do all this, they could open up like around $35 million with different restructures. They're not gonna open up that much, but they will open up some stuff. So we'll have Brian on. We'll talk about what they could do and what he thinks they will do as we head into the offseason. Oh, this is pretty cool. So Bill Belichick was on his show. And I'll get the name here in a second, but he was on there with a few other guys, and they were talking about the Hall of Fame finalists and whether or not they think that they should make it in. Bill Belichick gave a massive shout out to Terrell Suggs, who is one of the finalists, along with Marshall Yanda. But here he is commenting on Suggs.
Another example of Ozzie Newsome, who worked with us in Cleveland, just taking a good player. Remember?
And this is Lombardi, by the way. He's talking with Lombardi.
He couldn't run a fast 40. Everybody was digging him in the draft, said he couldn't run. But then when he got into the National Football League, nobody wanted to block him. He was physically tough. He played hard every single play. And that Baltimore defense, the signature of that defense was built on Suggs' personality. And I think that's a category that has to be put in the Hall of Fame, because not a lot of players have it. Some guys are just good players, but they don't raise the level of other players.
And that was a great thing about Suggs is, first of all, for me, any player we had to double team on every play, that's Hall of Fame material in my book. And you couldn't single Suggs. He was so explosive, so powerful, and he was just a matchup nightmare. I have a ton of respect for him. You're right. He doesn't get enough credit for what he did on that Baltimore defense.
I think Suggs is going to make it in this first time around. The quote here was, any player we had to double team on every play, that's Hall of Fame material in my book, says Belichick. You couldn't single Suggs. He was so explosive, so powerful. He was just a matchup nightmare. He doesn't get enough credit for what he did on that Baltimore defense. We keep talking about a game wrecker. Woo! Could we get prime Terrell Suggs back in the house? That sure would be nice. That sure would be nice. More quick hits here. It almost doesn't matter now. I was going to talk about the coaching carousel, meaning to imply that Todd Monken is going to likely stay in Baltimore, but we had the breaking news earlier that from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. If you're just joining us and haven't seen it, Jeremy Fowler reported that Monken and the Ravens are right now working on a contract extension. Meanwhile, the Cowboys are hiring their offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer, to be their new head coach. Okay. And so that just leaves the Saints left with an opening, which sounds like Todd Monken is not interested in, or they're not interested in him, or both. All right, guys, I feel like this was a pretty good show. Let me just check on these super chats. Okay. Kevin Hart followed up. He's like, okay, yeah, their first rounder was a Pro Bowler. Okay, that I was about to say. I was like, if Howie did that, I feel like I would have heard that much earlier. All right, Tila, I know you're about to remind me about patrons. Unfortunately, I don't even have that list. When I tell you, I just talked to Bobby before this. He sounds like death. I mean, he is not improved. He is not improved. So I have no patrons because he's got that list, but we will make up. I will, I'll ask Bobby if he can give me the list, and then that way I can bring him in. I really appreciate all your guys' patience. I just not able without Bobby here. Obviously, you guys know it's double the work. And I just can't move around my mornings, and my evenings are hard to move around with my 4 kiddos. Like I've got the time set apart that it is. So I've been trying to hit this 12 o'clock deadline. Maybe I can work ahead today. You never know. Like I guess like this morning, I'm trying to get, all the information from the conference weekend and had a big family day. So I appreciate you guys' patience. I'm trying to get here at noon. When Bobby comes back, it obviously is much more simple. So I've also noticed that there are a lot of people here commenting that are not Ravens fans. I'm just going to take that as a compliment. Like that maybe the other teams don't have great YouTube content channels, or maybe they do. Maybe they just don't run them right now. But I'm going to take it as a compliment, although I know all you guys have been fighting and arguing here, all that kind of stuff. So, but welcome. Although maybe some of the people in chat are like, no, Sarah, they're not welcome. But yeah, thank you, chat. Best channel, get better, Bobby. What else here, guys? Am I missing anything? Nigerian Warrior, Bill's welcome to Cancun. Yeah. Yep. Keela, you see it, Sarah. You know I do. King Lee, yes, best channel. I hope it is a good channel. I hope it's a great destination. I hope it's a great destination. I may be late, but I do hope I bring the content. I'm never short on content. I'm never short on opinions. And so, let's just summarize that. We'll summarize my takeaways from today up. Ravens, here's the takeaways from the weekend. Do not flinch. Do not flinch and get rid of that fear. Get rid of fear of expectations. Get rid of fear of Mahomes. Get rid of fear of like, oh, what if I lose again? Do not flinch. No turnovers. Quarterback rankings. Patrick Mahomes is on a tier of his own. Second tier, Lamar leads it in my view. The NFL admitted to refs doing wrong. I'd like to see them take a next step and hold them more accountable. My other takeaway, demote Mark Andrews in big moments. For now, if he earns it back, fine. But I'm calling other people's numbers first. Marlon is the king troll of the Ravens. Funny stuff. I'm glad he's back on Twitter. I like it. It's very entertaining. And then all those quick hits. Go Terrell Suggs. I'd like to see him as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Marshall Yanda, you too. I think it's harder as an offensive lineman now. So appreciate all you guys. Appreciate your support. I will send Bobby all your love and your thoughts and your prayers to him. I know this isn't fun for him. This is now going on how long? He was driving back from Buffalo on Monday, so it's been a week. He's been to the doctor. He's been taking antibiotics. Every morning he's like, I wish I could tell you I feel better today. So I feel really bad for him. All I can do, trying to do it for you, partner. Hold the fort down here. Keep calling you, checking in on you. Be a listening ear, all that kind of stuff. So much love to him. Much love to y'all. Much love to the patrons, even though I couldn't get to them today. I will make up for that. And much love to everyone in the chat, and especially the people who did a super chat to help support this channel in the off season. I hope you guys will be back here to join me around noon tomorrow, hopefully noon lunch hour live stream. Until then, have a great day. Talk to you then.